sea, there's a sea, there's a sea of Galilee.
There's a sea, there's a sea, there's a sea of Galilee.
There's a sea, there's a sea, there's a sea of Galilee.
There are boats on the Sea of Galilee. There are boats on the Sea of Galilee. There are boats, there are boats, there are boats on the Sea of Galilee.
There are men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are men, there are men, there are men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee.
There are hands on the men in the boat of the Sea of Galilee. There are hands on the men in the boat of the Sea of Galilee. There are hands, there are hands, there are hands on the men in the boat of the Sea of Galilee.
There are nets on the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There's nets on the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee.
There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are fish, there are fish, there are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee.
There are many fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat, Sea of Galilee. There are many fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat, Sea of Galilee. There are many fish, there are many fish, there are many fish
In the nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee.
Hulk smash!
Hey!
There's a sea.
There's a sea, there's a sea of Galilee.
Good morning, church. This is Danny Figgins coming to you from Bainbridge Island, and looking forward to singing with you this morning, worshiping God, and we can sing together, we can worship, even though we're far apart, maybe, but in spirit, we're together. We're going to sing together. We're going to worship with "Bless the Lord, O my soul." Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. For all Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship His holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship your holy name. I will worship your holy name. I will worship your holy name.
Brothers and sisters of the South Sound Church of Christ, it's great to be with you this morning. I hope that this finds you safe and healthy and faithful. I do want to say on behalf of Rachel and our family, it's been so encouraging to see how so many of you have been flexible and creative and just more than willing to figure out ways to stay connected in these times, to serve one another in these times. It truly is a real encouragement to our faith. We are part of such an incredible group of disciples here in the South Sound Church, and I just want to say thank you. Let's keep up the good work. We don't know what God's up to in the whole story or the whole picture, but we know He is up to something for our good, and so that we can be a greater impact to our community, that we can become more like Jesus and more for others. So let's keep at it to that end. We are going to be looking at Matthew chapter 14 today as we prepare to take communion together. Have you ever questioned whether you have what it takes to follow Jesus? Like, have you ever felt like Jesus is calling you to something and you just go, I don't know if I have what it takes to be that committed or to be that faithful or to be that righteous or to overcome these weaknesses and to do what Jesus is calling me to do. We all have, right? We've all wrestled with this question at some point because we're following a perfect Savior who calls us to a very high standard of loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. And He calls us to follow Him in that through His teachings and through our discipleship to Him. And so this morning I have one thought for us, one insight into that tension that I think we all feel in. Do I have what it takes to follow Jesus? We're going to look here at a very familiar story in Matthew chapter 14 of Peter and the other brothers as Jesus calls them to follow. Matthew chapter 14 and verse 25 says this: "Shortly before the dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw Him walking on the lake, they were terrified. 'It is a ghost,' they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid.' 'Lord, if it's you,' Peter replied, 'tell me to come to you on the water.' 'Come,' he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the winds, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me!' Immediately, Jesus reached out His hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' He said, 'why did you doubt?' And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped Him, saying, 'Truly, you are the Son of God.'" You know, Jesus had called these men to be his disciples, to follow him, to be his apprentices, to become more like him. And it literally meant they were going to follow in his literal footsteps as best as they could. A disciple-rabbi relationship was unparalleled. Where the disciple, or where the rabbi would walk, the disciple would walk. When the rabbi would eat, the disciple would eat. How the rabbi prayed, the disciple would pray. If the rabbi was left-handed, the disciple learned how to be left-handed. I mean, it was imitation to a degree that I don't know that we really understand, but quite literally they were striving to walk in the footsteps of their rabbi. To be a disciple was to be an imitator, a constant student, and ready and willing participant in the discovery of what it meant to become like your master. The rabbi would say this, and the disciple's job was to do that. The rabbi would say, "Come and follow me." And it was an invitation to become like their rabbi or their master. And Jesus, if you read a little early in the story, he just provided food for 5,000 people, and the disciples had to go pick up after everybody, and they didn't even get a break after that. He just sends them out into a boat, and he goes onto a hillside to pray. And people who have visited this place historically will tell you that from that hillside, he had a vantage point of his disciples, and they're just out there in the water for hours, and they're rowing, and they're caught in this storm, and he's on the hill praying, and he's watching what's happening to them. And then he goes down and he walks on the water, and he starts making his way towards them. And at first they think, man, he's a ghost, and they cry out. There was this common held belief in ancient times that spirits lived under the water, and Jesus says, "Hey, I'm not a ghost, it's me, it's your rabbi." And they're still not really sure, but Peter, he's going to be Peter, and he says, "Okay, well, if you are my rabbi, then you'll call me to come do what you're doing, so call me out there." And he kind of pulls Jesus' card, and Jesus says right back to him, "Come on." And now Peter's in this scenario where, okay, the guy's heard me say this, and now he's inviting me out there. What am I going to do? And Peter gets out and he walks on water. He's doing what his rabbi does, and he's making his way towards Jesus, and then he starts to get distracted with the winds and the waves, and he sinks, and Jesus has this moment where he pulls him right back up, and you can imagine him looking Peter eye to eye and saying, "And you have little faith, why did you doubt?" And Peter is held back up by Jesus. And he has to hear that question, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" And I imagine that question, it just stuck with him, right? And it probably stuck with him the rest of his life. Why did you doubt? Now, here's the thought that I have for you. And I heard this first from Marty Solomon at a thing I heard him speaking at, but who was Peter doubting? Who was Peter losing faith in that moment? Look, he was following Jesus on the water. He's looking at Jesus, his rabbi, walking on the water. When he gets in trouble, he calls his rabbi Lord. It says in this passage that they all agreed, man, this is the Son of God. And so who is Peter losing faith in this moment? It's not Jesus. It's himself. And Jesus says, "Peter, look what you were doing. Look at what was happening. You were walking on water like me. Why did you lose faith? Why did you doubt yourself? You had your eyes on me, and look at what was happening." Wow. And Jesus, he's amazed by this. He's literally amazed that Peter would lose faith in himself, because Jesus has so much faith in what Peter can do when he keeps his eyes on Jesus, when he puts his trust and his faith in Jesus. Jesus says, "You can walk on water, Peter." In fact, Jesus says things like, hey, to all of his disciples, hey, you're going to do even greater things than I have done. Nothing's going to be impossible for you. Truth and freedom are going to be yours for the taking. You guys can do this. And he calls them to follow. And it's never been some sort of practical joke of Jesus to call his followers and then say, I told you weren't good enough to follow me. No, he's always believed that if you can follow him, you'll decide to follow him. You have what it takes to follow him. He has faith in your ability. He calls you. He invites you. He asks you to trust him and to live by faith and to put that faith in action and to imitate him. You know, I wrestle with doubt. Do I have what it takes are questions that come up for me often. Can I live up to it? Can I embrace the promises of Christ here and follow him in this area, in my marriage or in my parenting or in my career or in my talents or my energies that go towards advancing the gospel? Or will I really have what it takes to follow him? And you know, this week was not without its challenges for me. Rachel and I, we started to get confronted with some dynamics in our own relationships and some things that I was responsible for and I was having really strong emotional responses to. And they weren't Jesus-like responses. And it was embarrassing because I'm responding in this way and I'm going, I know I shouldn't respond this way, but here I am responding this way. And I started to feel overwhelmed by just the storm that I felt like I was in emotionally and the circumstance. And I just felt like I don't know if I have what it takes to follow Jesus in this place, in this way, in this time, in this moment, in the things that he's calling me to do. And I just had a little faith, you know, and I took a little step out of the boat, and I started to sink, and I reached out for help to Jesus. And luckily I have a really spiritual wife who reached out for help to other disciples as well. In our marriage, we have this deal like, hey, if we get stuck, one of us is always has the right to call for backup, to go, hey, we need some help. And luckily Rachel did that. And she called our dear friends, you know, Dana and Jen, and they sat and they talked with us, and it helped so much. And I felt like Jesus was showing me again, like, hey, you do have what it takes to do this. And through the scriptures and through the counsel of friends and through prayer and just through grace that God provides, I felt like, okay, with my little faith, I'm going to move this mountain and do what Jesus calls me to do. I'm going to go be like him in this space. And it was amazing, and it has been amazing how God has allowed that to happen. And it's because he believes I have what it takes to follow him. And he believes you have what it takes to follow him. He believes you have what it takes to be humble enough, to be loving enough, to be sacrificial enough, to be forgiving enough, to be generous enough, to be like him, where he's calling you to. And I don't know where you need to hear that Jesus believes in you and believes that you can be like him in your life. But I do want you to know you have what it takes to be his faithful disciple. You have what it takes to go and make other disciples. Yes, even in a pandemic, to go make other disciples. You have what it takes to love your enemies, to love those on the other side of the aisle as though they were your brother or sister in Christ, as though they were Jesus himself. You have what it takes to love your family who you've been cooped up with for 4 weeks now. You have what it takes to stay righteous and pure. You have what it takes to be more sacrificial. You have what it takes to become more like Jesus, because Jesus believes in you. What it takes is that Jesus has faith in you. And if you'll keep your eyes on him, he knows you can do it. But the reliance isn't on ourselves. The reliance is on grace, and it's on the belief that Jesus has in us that he's offering. And at the cross, Jesus paid the ultimate price. He paid this price so that there is nothing that can get in the way of us becoming like our master, of us following him in faith to wherever he would call us. He paid the price so that not ourselves, not our past, not our failures, not our sin, past or current, nothing can get in the way of him, of us following him. He paid the ultimate price. And he calls us to follow him. And even to follow him to the cross, laying down our lives in the same way so that others could be forgiven. Jesus calls us to lay down our lives as he did. He's calling you today. I don't know in what way, but I know Jesus is calling you in faith to follow him in some way. Maybe it's to lay down your life for somebody this week. In your ability to forgive, in your willingness to be humble, in your willingness to be serving or to be generous, to meet a need. But God is calling you. Jesus is calling you to follow him, to lay down your life. Ultimately, he believes you have what it takes. Maybe you've tried before and it hasn't worked out well. You've fallen short even, and you've had this Peter moment where you're sinking. Jesus he's just ready there. He's ready to pick you back up, to look you in the eyes. And here's what's so amazing about Peter's story. Even though he sunk in the waves, when Jesus pulled him back up, how did they get back to the boat? He walked on water again. I don't think Jesus carried Peter back to the boat like a little lamb. I think he said, Peter, you have what it takes. Don't doubt anymore. Let's get back in the boat. And the two of them, walking back to the boat together. I mean, can you imagine what the brothers in the boat are thinking? Like, how inspiring it is. They watch Peter walk on water. They watch him start to sink. They watch Jesus pull him back up. And then they watch the two of them walk back into the boat. And this example of Peter inspires these brothers and sisters for thousands of years. It inspires us today. Your example as you step out of the boat this week will inspire those who are watching. Your children, your spouse, the brothers and sisters in your life. Jesus is calling you. He's paid the price. He's calling you to follow him. He believes you have what it takes. He believes you are worth it. And he showed us that on the cross. Let's consider these things as we look to him this morning and we prepare for communion. God bless you guys. Love you.
Can separate your steadfast love, who can escape your faithfulness, an endless sea, so full of grace and mercy. We sing, God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. Haunted by the past no more. My innocence has been restored. Forgiveness flows from your veins. Your kindness shows in all your ways. We sing, God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. Oh, there's never been has come. I fix my eyes on Christ alone, my rock, my shield, my cornerstone. We sing, God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. You are so good. You're so good to me.
Thank you for joining us this morning for worship. We hope it's something that has prepared you spiritually for the week to come. Please continue to follow us online. You can get to our website at southsoundcoc.org or find us on Facebook or Instagram. If you're new or you found us recently, we would love for you to go and find our Next Steps button on our website so we can get to know you a little better and hear how we can serve you, certainly in this time. For all of our members or anybody who wants to give financially, please go to the website and click on the Give button. This will take you to the Tithely app so we can continue to be faithful in our giving in this time. If you missed our 9:30 Kids program, you can find it on our website in the Virtual Kids Corner, and be sure to tune in next week at 9:30 for another Kids program. If you are essential personnel or you're experiencing hardships because of the coronavirus, please let us know so we can continue to pray and support everybody. Until next week, stay safe and keep the faith.